Hey, what's up? John Sonmez from simpleprogrammer.com. So I thought I would do a video on this idea that I had about how most people can't handle freedom. As I'm writing the new books that I'm writing, I came across this topic, and I was talking about this idea of freedom. And this has come up quite a few times. I did this old video on "You Are a Slave." It's sort of embarrassing, but it's sort of it goes to my point. But I wanted to sort of rehash this a little bit and talk about this concept, this idea that most people, they say they want freedom, right? And they can't actually handle it. And this is an interesting mentality that we have that you might not be aware of in yourself. And I think it's important to understand this for a couple of reasons. One is because of yourself. Obviously, if you're seeking freedom and you can't handle freedom, right? In fact, where this came up was when I was thinking about, I did a video or I recorded a video on remote jobs, which that video will actually probably come out after this one because I did it in a batch with a professional crew for the video. But anyway, I was thinking about this idea about freedom and why sometimes a remote job is not so good. That's actually where this came from. But anyway, so first of all, you should know this or be familiar with this concept because it applies directly to you, right? When you gain freedom and gain levels of freedom which you are wanting, you will find inevitably that humans in general are not good at handling freedom. There's a reason why we tend to be cogs in a machine. And I'm not saying this is a good thing. We'll get to that in a minute here. But that's number one. And the number two reason is because other people can't handle freedom. And when you give them freedom, which is what you think that they want or that they need, they are going to inevitably screw up. And this is really important if you're a manager. This is really important if you delegate tasks. This is really important in a lot of situations where you are responsible for setting up structure, and you think by giving people freedom instead of structure, you're doing them a favor and a service, and what you're really doing is you're setting them up for failure. So let's talk about kind of the basic concept and where I've arrived at this. And I think a lot of people are going to disagree with this, and they're going to say, oh, I can handle freedom. But I would ask you, how much freedom have you actually had in your life? And I can tell you from personal experience, right? If you've watched my developer career series, you can see there's a couple of them in there where, the whole story of my life, of the failure parts of my life, was me getting freedom, right? Wanting freedom, getting freedom, not being able to handle freedom, and fucking it up totally, right? Totally fucking it up. And that's me, right? I learned a lot of lessons in my life, but I didn't know that I couldn't handle freedom. And so I think that's part of the reason why I'm making this video is I want to kind of equip you with that knowledge so you can prepare for it. Because I think you can train yourself to be able to handle freedom, but you may also say, you know what? I don't want the burden of responsibility of freedom, and I'd rather someone just tell me what to do. I'd just rather work a job. I'd just rather not have the freedom that I think that I want, because within that structure I can operate. And so, and even, I have to regulate my own freedom myself, right? Because as an entrepreneur, as someone who works for themselves essentially and is creating Simple Programmer here, I don't have a schedule. I don't have a boss. Heck, I don't even need money, right? I don't even need to do any of this. I've got passive income coming in. So there is nothing that is holding me, to anything. I've got, pretty much 100% freedom. So I have to actually restrict my freedom and create a schedule and create a process in order to actually get shit done. Otherwise, no shit will get done, right? I'll tell you, if I just don't plan the day at all, if I just don't have a structure and a schedule or routine, I would be fat, right? I would not be in shape. I would not get anything done, right? And Simple Programmer would not move forward. You'd be not watching this video because it wouldn't just happen. And I think that's what a lot of people think, especially, I'll go back to the remote job thing. A lot of developers think, well, if I just had the freedom to be able to do what I want, or to work from home, or to work when I want, different levels of freedom, And they don't realize that they can't handle the freedom, because in order to be able to handle freedom, what you have to be able to do is to self-regulate. You have to be able to restrict your freedom yourself. You cannot just handle, no one can handle absolute freedom. They're going to screw up. They're not going to actually focus and get stuff done. It has to be regulated in some way. So it's either self-regulation or someone else regulating it. And I think this is just a critical concept to understand, because we are all seeking kind of these higher levels of freedom, and then what ends up happening is we inevitably get them, we fuck up, we don't understand why, and then we're still back in that cycle. We're still in that pattern. So I think it's critical for you to understand, that this is going to happen. And I'll tell you, the first time, and you've probably seen this in your own life, right? One of the things, like if you watch the Entreprogrammers podcast, right, the weekly mastermind group podcast that I do, one of the toughest problems, you'll see multiple of us over the years struggle with this problem, is that as an entrepreneur, right, you have to wear the manager hat and you have to wear the worker hat, right? And you have to be able to switch between the two, right? And what you'll find is there'll be a lot of people before they become entrepreneurs, before they gain that level of freedom, and they will, in the manager capacity, right, they will function fine. They can come up with a plan and tell people what to do, right? They got a problem, they can come up with a plan, they can tell people what to do, and they can get stuff done. They can delegate, right? Given freedom in that area. At the same time, if they're told what to do, they can do that totally fine, and they can follow orders, and they can, that successful people can follow orders, right? They can, so they can do that. Both of those are sort of freedom restricted. But when they're given 100% freedom, when they have to come up with the plan and they have to execute the plan, which is what an entrepreneur has to do primarily, right? As an entrepreneur, you wake up and it's like, okay, what do you want to do today? How are you going to move the ball forward? It's all in your court, right? You're the one making the decision, and then you have to actually execute on the decision. It's paralyzing. It's horrible, right? It's like, it's like it's so much easier if someone says, hey, you need to write an essay or a blog post on X topic. But if you have a blank page and you're like, write whatever you want, do some creative writing, it's so hard to do, right? Because that's that freedom concept, right? So you got to sort of self-restrict and make choices and things like that. So you've probably experienced this, right? You've probably experienced this in your own life, and maybe even if you've been assigned a project where the goals were really indeterminate, or maybe you had, you go ahead and choose how to handle this or how to do things, and you've realized that you'd rather have a clear goal, especially when there's not a goal, right? If there's a goal, then maybe you can say, okay, well, I can come up with a plan to get the goal. But if your boss came to you one day and said, hey, look, here's the thing, you're a smart dude, right? So here's what I'm going to do. Instead of me telling you what I want you to do, you just do whatever. You're a smart dude. You come up with whatever kind of goals that you want, and you just achieve those goals, right? This is why we suck at performance reviews when you're told to like come up with your own goals and then you're going to do them, because you're like, no, just tell me what to do, please. Just tell me what the goal is, and I'll accomplish the goal, right? Because it's more of a comfortable place. So, this is something that can be overcome, like I said, but that comes through self-regulation. But you have to understand this concept, and like I said, the number one is for you, because you're seeking freedom all the time. You want more freedom, you want more flexibility, you want your boss to let you do what you want to do, or handle it how you want to do it, or you want to become an entrepreneur, or you want to become retired and have your day to yourself, or you want to get rid of structure and just be able to do what you want to do when you want to, work when you want to. And what you don't realize is that is a heavy burden. Most people cannot handle that. You've got to figure out how to handle that. So, and then also, again, knowing this, when you go and you try to delegate a task to someone, do not go and just give them an open, the more structured that you can make things, and it depends on the person's ability to handle freedom, which you can test, and you can kind of have an idea. But generally, the lower level down the chain, the more structure that you have to have. At McDonald's, it's really important that there are set working hours, that there's set tasks and jobs, there's set ways to do the things, and there's a lot of rules, right? Those things are going to create success for people that are very unable to handle freedom. That if you give them freedom, they will totally abuse it, and they will not, they do not have any amount of self-discipline or self-regulation. Not to say that all McDonald's employees, but for a majority, right? So you got to think about things like that. As a boss, a lot of times you're like, oh well, I'm just gonna, I've made this mistake, right? This is what I'm telling you is because I've said, oh, you can work whenever, or whatever, not given very good structure to the wrong people. Now some people can operate more within that, but they sort of have to prove it and earn it. And so that's, it's hard. It's key there. And when you find people that can operate well within freedom, those are really good employees. Those are really good people to delegate tasks to. But even they're going to have their limits. You don't want to if you just give an amorphous, go and make things happen, go and make us money or whatever it is, and you have 100% freedom and there's no restriction on time or hours or regulation or any of that stuff, you're setting them up for failure. And you'd be setting yourself up for failure. And so the last part of this, I think, is this idea of, okay, what do you do when you get freedom? How do you actually learn to be able to be a person that can handle freedom and succeed, right? So I think, at least in my life, right, because I told you, I fucked up so many times when I had freedom, is that you have to be extremely self-disciplined and you have to be willing to self-regulate. You have to realize that, yes, as an entrepreneur, you could work whatever hours you want. Yes, you could get up in the middle of the night and work, but you need to set like a 9-to-5 schedule. You need to set a daily routine, right? You need to have a time, right? The same thing, with working out, right? If I don't know what days I'm supposed to go to the gym, in fact, what time is really, now, it's 3 to 5 every day is my workout time, either running or gym, and that makes it really easy to stick to the plan. So you've got to develop those self-discipline. You have to take away your own freedom voluntarily. You're choosing to take away the freedom, and that's how you get to to that point of being able to self-regulate. And it starts a little bit at a time. You don't want to have a huge amount of freedom all of a sudden and then try and deal with this. You have to train yourself, get that self-discipline, right? I did this video on discipline and how to get self-discipline. And sometimes going the physical route can help you a lot. Getting the mental discipline from physical discipline is going to be able to help you to do that. But that's the primary way, and I would say, also the ability to switch those hats, right? I've talked about this concept multiple times, but if you can switch from the manager, the sort of person who decides the path hat, the bigger picture, right? Seeing the forest, right? To the hat of the worker who just executes and gets stuff done, and without questioning it, right? You can't change the plan midway. You've got to be able to be the visionary, see the problem, set the rules, set the plan, and then execute on that. You can't switch those in between, right? It has to be periodic. Otherwise, that amount of freedom will just destroy you, right? So I think this is key. Self-regulation. It's not the most fun, but the thing is, like, who would you rather have your master be? Would you have your master be someone else or be yourself? Because a person who cannot master themselves will be ruled by another. This is a common theme throughout history. And so you have to choose. Are you going to master yourself? Are you going to be the master of yourself? Or are you going to be ruled by another? And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that I would prefer more people to be able to handle freedom, but I know that as a human race, we don't handle freedom really well. We do really well being shackled. We do really well as being cogs in a machine, and that's okay if that's what you want, but you have to recognize that. You have to say, look, I am purposely subjecting myself to another, and I'm going to do the best job that I can for them because I know that I don't want my freedom. I would rather, have servitude and I'm taken care of and, I'm fed and everything is cool and I don't have to worry about those things. But, if you do take on the task of freedom, you have to be prepared for it. Otherwise, it's like a hydrogen bomb in the wrong hand is going to blow you up, right? You're playing with dynamite here, and you have to know how to handle it, or you just give up. You don't handle the thing, and that's fine. And so anyway, I thought this was an important topic. I think this is one that, again, a lot of people don't quite get until it blows up in your face. It blew up in my face plenty of times, and it's a battle that you're always going to fight. You're always going to struggle with this, right? But but you can come out on top if you're aware. Being aware is such an important thing. Self-awareness. So anyway, that's it for this video. If you like these videos, definitely subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And it's been awesome to see everyone supporting the channel on Patreon. Who knows, by the time this is live, we might not even have ads because we're really close to the goal. But if we're not, I would appreciate if you like this video, if you'd like to support and get rid of ads on this channel and see new, cool, awesome stuff show up here, go to the Patreon, and I've got a bunch of awesome rewards for you. Become part of the community, get part of the Facebook group, you even get a signed copy of Soft Skills if you like. So anyway, that's it. I will talk to you next time. Take care.